All right, time to release a little automation. All right, so this session is targeted for all of you who do not like to work the 96-hour work week. This is for you who wants to get home at a decent hour, get home on time, be able to actually have a weekend off. My goal is simple. I'm going to show you the bits and pieces of Windows PowerShell and System Center Orchestrator and how the two of them interact with each other. Orchestrator is a graphical-based automation system. PowerShell is a console-based automation system. Both have their own strengths. But what's interesting that a lot of people don't realize is that the two environments will combine together to give you options you didn't yet have before. So with any luck, by the time we're walking out of here, you'll be able to take Orchestrator and manage systems that you couldn't manage before, or leverage capabilities you had in Windows PowerShell inside your Orchestrator environments. Okay. All right, so for a quick introduction, for those of you who don't know me, a lot of you may not, my name is Sean Carney. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at Cisco Technology in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. We're a Microsoft Gold partner. I work in the Advanced Microsoft Solutions team, means my task daily is to work with automation through PowerShell, System Center Orchestrator, MDT, and even application packaging. My job is to make sure things go in, they run silently, they run consistently. I'm also, for trivial pursuit's sake, an honorary scripting guy on the Hey Scripting Guys blog. You'll also probably see my nemesis, The Batchman, was a fun series we wrote in Hey Scripting Guys. What can I say? Albeit I'm a geek. So I think it's fair to say that every IT professional is being placed in the task to do more with less. I mean, let's think about it. Your typical environment, you've got more developers than IT pros, way more users than IT pros, but you still have to get the work done in your standard 40-hour work week. You still have to get everything done at 5 o'clock, whether you can or you can't. And not only do we have to make things happen, we have to now meet compliance rules. Like in North America, we have PCI compliance, but you have to be able to sit there and establish why this task happened, why things happened. So we can no longer just simply create a user in Active Directory. We have to prove why the user was created. So our jobs as IT professionals are a little bit trickier than they used to be, say, 5, 10, maybe even 15 years ago. But I could provide a solution. Solution one, I can bring down a black hole and alter the space-time continuum, thus giving us a 96-hour workday. Or we can maybe place a request for bionic fingers. Or I can show you a better method, because the trick with the black hole is that human resources has some safety committee issues with it, and having bionic fingers is just a tad expensive for the finance committee. So I'm going to go with showing you the better way, and the better way is using System Center Orchestrator and Windows PowerShell to give you that edge that you didn't have before. So we've got two technologies sitting before us right now. Some of us live in Orchestrator, some of us live in PowerShell, and some of us are just walking into these worlds. Orchestrator, I like to think of it as scripting for the non-scripter. It's a graphical-based system. That's easy to work with and easy to work with, including for your manager. Windows PowerShell is, in my personal opinion, the greatest automation tool Microsoft has ever introduced. It's simple to work with, not difficult to get the hang of. You can use it as a management console. And just for trivial pursuit, it's the only scripting technology that has its own theme song. I'm not kidding. Highway to PowerShell. Look for it for fun on the internet. So I'm going to sit there and show you how these two systems can work together. Because sometimes when we go for an automation solution, we look at Orchestrator. This is how I'm going to solve the problem. But then you run into stumbling pieces. Or I'm going to use PowerShell. But it would be nice if I could have my boss see this. But PowerShell provides some automation capabilities that maybe Orchestrator doesn't. If only I could put the two together. Well, you can. The trick I found online when I went to go into this myself is that the details are there, but they're scattered all throughout the internet. So my task today is to give you those details so you don't have to go through the internet. So you can take those pieces that you need, and if you need to integrate PowerShell and Orchestrator together, you can. So as I said, our first task up here is our good friend System Center Orchestrator, a graphical-based automation system. If you've ever seen System Center Orchestrator, you'll be familiar with it. For those who are new to it, it is a very task-oriented system. You'll have what's called runbooks on your screen. For PowerShell people and scripting people, the runbook is the equivalent of the script, but it's represented by a folder. Within that folder is a series of graphical items pointing at various activities you're going to be doing, like monitor service, monitor mailbox, disable user. When you go into those tasks, you're not going to see code. You're going to see exactly what you need. I want to browse to this user. I want to browse to this CNN Active Directory. I want to access this service, and you're simply browsing to the various components. It's simple to work with, and if you draw up a runbook properly, it's even possible to make a System Center Orchestrator runbook match your onboarding process, for example. So your boss may not care how code works, nor should he, but you have an onboarding process for your staff. And it's good if the business process matches maybe what the code looks like. So if you present it to your boss and they say, yeah, that's our onboarding process, and you go and you tweak those features to match your systems. What I personally like about Orchestrator, just as raw trivial pursuit, is it runs on PowerShell itself. Its older version of Palace ran on Java. They've redone everything, and the back-end engine is PowerShell. Everything you call through Orchestrator is calling up a PowerShell engine. It's also not locked down. So like PowerShell with its modules, System Center Orchestrator, I can use what's called integration packs to give it extensions to various other systems. It can talk to SAN devices, talk to systems it may not natively out of the box talk to. But it's not just extensible through these integration packs. You can add other details into it. You can use System Center Orchestrator to have it launch PowerShell scripts internally. Now, launching a script is not a tricky task. But launching the script and accessing the data that's within the script and sending it back out, that's one of the parts that's not well documented online. Or I've got a PowerShell script, and I could just make it do the task, but if I could only learn how to access the variables being published by System Center Orchestrator. So what we're going to be doing today is showing you how to take those pieces, put them back together, and some of the caveats you'll be running into. And outside of just PowerShell, Orchestrator can even do SSH, write to databases directly. It's a very, very extensible system as it stands out of the box. So today, we've got a task. Not a tricky task, actually. And it's based on a solution we actually provide for a client. So our client presently has an onboarding solution. It's very manual. It works. It's got a little risky pieces here and there where it may not actually meet compliance. So the process is simple. The manager sends an email to the mailbox. The help desk staff watch that mailbox for an email saying new user or disable user. They grab the content of that email, they go to their lovely little service test application, and they populate the application with the data manually. They fire an email off to the manager. When they get authorization for the user, they create the user in Active Directory through an old process like copy the user and manually type in the details. That's fraught with error. The process technically meets compliance, but there's flaws with the process. So they would like us to create a solution that's going to not only run, but run in parallel to their existing solution. So we need to sit there and have the old solution work, create a new and brand new side by side to be able to prove to the managers that when you submit an email request, this is what your new solution is going to look like. It's working the same way your old one does, but we've just eliminated the following errors. Now, down the road, what they'd like to do is take the same solution and extend it to be able to create the users in Active Directory through a workflow process. So we're going to be using Service Manager as our final destination because it meets ITIL and MOF compliance. We're going to be monitoring the mailbox using System Center Orchestrator and a community-developed integration pack. The content from that mailbox will no longer be fiddled with by the IT staff. We're going to have PowerShell take the content out of the mailbox, parse it directly, and use that data to populate Service Manager tickets. So we've at least eliminated one step in our little challenge. Now, at the same time, what I'm doing here just for fun is because all the data that's coming in from the email would be, say, first name, last name, division, maybe phone extension, whatever's popular for your users. We're taking PowerShell, and we're also going to have it pre-populate the variables for Active Directory down the road. So although today we're not going to have the thing hooking directly into Active Directory because it has to meet security compliances, we have to have value with the system, we're going to have PowerShell at least populate and build the system so that down the road, all we have to do is make that minor change to the system. So again, let's take a quick look at our basic orchestrator runbooks. So for those of you who've never seen Orchestrator before, as I like to think of it again, scripting for the non-scripter. You're looking at a graphical view of code. Now the cool part is with Orchestrator, as you look at it, you don't see C#, you don't see PowerShell in the back end, you just see an activity. An activity that you look at and you don't even have to know how to work with code to make that activity work. All of Orchestrator's activities and information is stored in a SQL database, which can actually be quite redundant. But you can also apply filters between the various components in there. So when an activity happens in Orchestrator, you can actually place a filter on that activity to say what happens, much like you did with PowerShell and VBScript to put an if-then statement. But it's, again, it's a more graphical, simple solution. We just say filter based on X. Orchestrator communicates through what's called the data bus. So in the PowerShell world, you'd be thinking of the pipeline. Pipeline equals database, same general idea. You can take data, you publish it down the pipeline, and every object down the runbook can access that data. Now, one of the catch-22s we're working with Orchestrator is that you're going to have a maximum of 50 runbooks running at a time, and you're going to be wondering, why does Sean have multiple runbooks in the system? I broke up my design into smaller books so it'd be a little bit nicer on the eyes. But one of the catch-22s is you can run a maximum of 50 runbooks at a time. That's something to be aware of, but that's not something that's going to hold us back, because you can schedule those runbooks. Now, so also out of the packs is our good friend, the integration packs. So with PowerShell, you've got modules, you've got snap-ins. Orchestrator, we have integration packs. Integration packs, to create them, you require the knowledge of our good friend C#. But that's okay, because most of the integration packs I'm finding we're needing out of the box are already designed by Microsoft. And a Service Pack 1, the extended new integration packs, they'll deal directly with Exchange, FTP, Windows, Azure. So Orchestrator out of the box will talk to these systems. But beyond Microsoft, vendors are creating integration packs. So let's just say you've got to talk to a SAN device. Would it make sense to be spending your weekends modifying the SAN device, modifying the properties, rebuilding the systems? Or would it make sense to have a system monitor that, and when something minor happens, do the work for you? So it's possible to have Orchestrator, if at the very least, monitor these devices, if not doing the maintenance. But beyond our good friends from Dell, Hewlett-Packard, and all the various vendors, integration packs are being introduced by the community. So this is just Microsoft and vendors coming up with answers. There's one website, scorch.coldplex.com, and orchestrator.coldplex.com. That have a whole pile of integration packs that may actually meet your needs. So if you have, say, older technology like Exchange 2007, and Microsoft has not provided the integration pack for that, that's okay. There's a pile of them on the community websites that work beautifully. In fact, we're going to be using one of them today to actually perform the task at hand. So let's take a quick little run over to our runbook. I'll give you a quick run through so you can see what you're looking at. Mouse over here. All right, so right now, whoops, wrong button. Over here is a basic Orchestrator runbook. Now I've made it, broke it down in much smaller pieces. But within the runbook, you can see there's various tasks. Connecting these tasks are the data bus. That's your pipeline. If I access pieces of the pipeline, I can pull up data. Now our first challenge here is I want to make sure that I can actually monitor mail. Orchestrator out of the box will not allow me to monitor an email box. But that's fine, because there's a community-developed integration pack from a fellow from General Mills that allows us to literally do that, monitor the mailbox, monitor the content, delete email attachments directly from Orchestrator, as long as you have the rights and attachments to that box. So the first challenge is we have to bring an integration pack in. So for that, we launch the Deployment Manager and System Center Orchestrator. Oops. Go to your integration packs. And I don't see my Exchange ones. I'll have to add it. So right-click on Integration Packs. Just choose Register IP with the Orchestrator Management Server. Quick little Next. Add. And browse the integration pack in Quinn. So Exchange Mail is who we're looking for. We go Next. We go Finish. We give them a few minutes to think about it. We check Integration Packs. And now we have the Exchange Mail integration pack in there. Now this isn't actually pushing it onto the Orchestrator server. This is simply populating it with the the Orchestrator Deployment Manager database to allow you to push it if you need it. So this is actually, although this is a change to a production system, this is a very non-destructive change, unless you were replacing an existing integration pack with a newer version. Now, to push it down, we just go down to, Integration Packs, the one we just brought in. Right-click, deploy IP to Runbook Server or Runbook Designer. Choose the one we want, Exchange Mail, thank you very much. Next. The computer I'm pushing onto, which is EOT Scorch. Add them to the list. Next. Now, here's where I immediately start liking Orchestrator. Out of the box, the whole task of getting an automation system online is to get us home earlier. So if I'm pushing an integration pack to a Runbook server, and that's hitting a production system. Well, normally most of us have a change process. You want to make that change at, say, 9 o'clock at night or some reasonable hour. But do you want to be in the server accessing it remotely at 9 o'clock at night? Of course not. That's pointless. That defeats the whole purpose of automation. So out of the box, runbooks can actually, excuse me, not runbooks, and hit the wrong button again. My monitors and my slides are backwards. Okay. So out of the box, we can actually sit there and schedule our changes without having to sit there and down the system, or without having to be there. Okay. Why is the keyboard not working? There we go. Now we can also push it straight through. Now in doing that, if you have any runbooks that are doing production changes, if you just push it through, it's going to stop those changes. It's going to interrupt the environments. So you want to schedule that. Or you can simply say, push the integration packs through. For whatever reason, I want to manually reboot later. But this is a demo environment, not a production environment, and I'm not worried. I just push it through. This will take a little bit to push it down the line. Now, the nice part is if you have an integration pack on an orchestrator server, it actually sits within add remove programs. Normally, you can just remove it from here, from this console. If for any reason, I personally can't see one, but if you did have to manually uninstall an integration pack, you literally go to add remove programs and just uninstall it. So you do have that as a fallback option. Oops. There we go. And now, if we go down to our good friend Scorch, the runbook server, and if I was to hit refresh, Exchange Mail is now available integration pack. So that means all the features that integration pack has are now available to us. And if we want to see what our integration packs normally look like, oops, runbook, wrong runbook. There we go, right runbook. You get off my screen, you stay on my screen. Or maybe you go backwards. There we go. Too many buttons to click. So down the left-hand side here, we can see the available integration packs within Orchestrator. There's some stock ones, like System, where you have tasks for doing end process, monitor SMP traps. You got a series of ones for scheduling, monitoring, file management. Those are just built in. But in our case here, we want to sit there and work with the one for Exchange. Now, I may have to do a refresh because I added it in a live runbook. Let's close her down. Give it a few seconds. Start it back up. So what you will notice, if you push an integration pack into the runbook server and you have Runbook Designer opened, you may not see it automatically refresh, but simply relaunching it should do that. So runbooks, good old TechEd. There we go. So now here, we've got the Exchange Mail integration pack. This gives us more features to Orchestrator. Literally, if you look at these are tasks now. We're not looking at PowerShell script where you have to run a get child item. You're not looking at something where you have to figure out how the thing works. We're looking at a task. So in this case, my task I'm working with right now is monitor mailbox. So I've got the Orchestrator environment right now. If I double click on it, and provided the computer behaves, there we go. So the configuration of this particular task is monitor mailbox. What are you monitoring? I'm watching the inbox. How often? Every 30 seconds. What type of format? If you had to change the formats or any of these details, this is not pull out the manual, find the code. This is click in the box, click the ellipse, and choose the format of your mail. So this is really nice in the sense that you can actually work with the thing without having to know code. If I need to access any of the data, now the way the runbook data bus works is that you see all the arrows are going in one direction. Runbook's to the right. So runbook's going in our good friend this direction here. Delete mail can access any published data from the previous one. Get attachments can access any published data from the previous one. They can also, all of them, can access any global variable. So if I had a variable down here, these are all accessible by every single entity. But if you're working with runbook, you can see the flow of your data bus. That's the flow the data is accessible from. So delete mail can actually go in here and access the email ID from monitor mailbox. You can also right-click on your runbook and set up something simple as scheduling. Go to your properties, and you could actually schedule that runbook to start and stop at certain times. I've made a very basic test schedule here, which won't do a lot of it. But you can schedule these runbooks to start and stop at certain times within Orchestrator itself. And the other nice part with the runbooks is to back it up. Now, here's one to be catch-22 with your runbooks. There is no native rollback within Orchestrator. So unlike you got Team Foundation server, you can sit there and roll back code. You got volume shadow copy, you can step back and undo the boo-boo you make. Orchestrator, there is no rollback. So what you want to do is if you're going to make a change to a runbook, right-click on that runbook, choose Export, choose the file location, and let's just say, no more boo-boo. Now, by default, when you export the runbook, it wants to export everything within Orchestrator, not just your localized runbook, which is your script, but also any global counters, global schedules, variables, and computer groups that are available in there. If you don't need that data, don't export it. If you're just exporting the runbook alone and only making that change, you can just deselect these options and export it. Now, what's nice is that the exported runbook is not a binary file. It's just a good old-fashioned XML file. Developers love it. IT pros, we look at XML and we kind of run off there. But it's just text, which means you're not dealing with any strange way to repair the file. If you had the, in fact, one of the things I found with the Orchestrator, it was when you exported the XML file, if I had to access the PowerShell script that was in that file directly, I can literally open up a Notepad or Notepad++, select the script, copy it out, and put it into Notepad. So it's got a few options I hadn't thought of before. Now let's flip over here. Now, the reason we look at PowerShell as an option is that you got an integration pack. So let's just say we had the integration pack for Exchange 2007 and it met our task beautifully. We're happy. Let's say we have a system that there is no integration pack for. So the normal solution is call up the vendor and plead and beg and cry. Or you get your developer to write one. But there's just as many systems that are manageable by Windows PowerShell as there is with the System Center Orchestrator. So we can actually have the option of saying, importing a PowerShell module within the system. You'll have to change your execution policy so that you can actually import the script. But you could import a PowerShell module to manage a system that didn't have an orchestrator option. Or better yet, let's just say you have a PowerShell script that does the task perfectly, and it just needs to fit into our orchestrator workflow somehow. But the problem is, we just don't know how to take that published data, like say the temporary password or the phone extension that's been generated in the PowerShell script, and send it down the orchestrator. With PowerShell, with Orchestrator, we can do that. Because every single PowerShell variable can be published directly into the Orchestrator bus. Now, there's some caveats. You can only publish only 3 types of variables: a string, integer, and date time. And I don't believe they can be an array. I haven't tried that part yet. But you can access also all any variables being published on the data bus. So in the same way, our previous orchestrator task can go down the bus, can access other published orchestrator variables. PowerShell can access those same variables. In fact, what we're actually creating within the orchestrator bus is another orchestrator event, another activity, and it's called the .NET activity. And you can literally just plop in your PowerShell script and subscribe to the variables. Now, there are some catch-22s with the PowerShell when you drop it in there. So when I subscribe to an orchestrator variable within PowerShell, it'll actually place like a little GUID in the script. But rather than pointing to the value in Orchestrator, when you run it in Orchestrator, what it's actually going to do is erase that content and physically type in the data. So if there's data within your Orchestrator variable, like that may be something that PowerShell can't interpret, that might cause you a little problem there. You have to deal with that. But the, excuse me, I'm just getting over cold today. But the information can all be accessed, and the Orchestrator variables can also be accessed by PowerShell. Not too difficultly either. Now, flip over to our friend here. All right, keyboard mouse game. So here I've extended the new runbook a little bit further there. So our original one, we were monitoring the mailbox, grabbing a random password, getting some attachments, deleting the mail, and now we're going to be launching a second runbook. Now, the way I've done this right now is only for visual purposes. Really, if you want to make a system like this, you want to have one runbook, because remember there's a limit to how many runbooks you can run at a time. If I have several runbooks, I can eat up my resources by Orchestrator server. But I've done this for visual sakes because really the more little icons we have on the screen, the harder it is for all of us to read this. So what I've done here is I've created a basic PowerShell script. Now, I didn't create the script in Orchestrator. That's a big one you're going to look out for right now. If I was to type in this edit window right now, this is not an editor window, and no way, shape. This is basically a copy-paste window. I'm saying that because if you erase something by accident, what's the normal thing we can do in Windows? Control-Z, right? Undo, step back. There is no undo here. That's okay. I'm going to show you ways to get around that. Rule 1, export the runbook. So before you make any changes, this is how you cover your job and protect yourself. Export your runbook. It takes 2 seconds. You've got a file on the hard drive. If you make a mistake, because we're not perfect, we're going to make mistakes, you can undo by that. You just restore your runbook back. Now, if you're editing the PowerShell script, there's an even easier way of doing that. It's called our friend Notepad. But you can see the blue section up here, which says file name from initialized data. So why do I keep hitting the wrong keyboard? My keyboards and my monitors are backwards, so I keep picking the wrong one from current slide. There we go. Oops, and I should actually you can actually read that. So to access data from the orchestrator runbook in PowerShell, you literally, so let's just say $ something equals, and we're going to do quote, right click, subscribe. Publish data or variable. Right now you're telling orchestrator I want to go to publish data from your run bus or variable as in a global variable. And once you're in that, it's the same way as you're accessing orchestrator data normally. So let's just say subject. And did it put it in the right spot? Because it does it all the time. There it goes. Put a quote around it. Now, you'll notice I'm putting quotes here for a reason. Remember I was saying that what orchestrator does, it doesn't point to the data. It erases that little GUID up there and physically populates it with information. So if it's putting a string in there, and you do have quotes around that string, PowerShell is going to kind of put up its hands and go, ah! It's not going to be happy. And that's, again, I've hit the same mouse. So now the other part is you want to get that data out of PowerShell. So if we go down here to see where you see published data, you'll see I've already got a series of variables being published. The method to publish them is easier than you think. So in PowerShell, every variable in PowerShell has got a $ name, right? So $dog, $cat, $giant gerbil. So whatever the variable name is, we'll see a little box here called variable name. You literally type in the PowerShell variable name without the $. So if I'm publishing a variable called chicken a la king, I can't see using that variable ever in PowerShell, but what the heck. And the box up here marked name, you simply type in the name you want orchestrator to be able to access on the run bus. So, not chicken. I know it's a silly example, but you can change the names if you want. But as you can see down here, what I've simply done is I've matched my PowerShell variable with my orchestrator run bus name. I want consistency. You can change them if you have to, but you can just really go consistent. And as we're saying, there's only 3 types you can publish down to the bus. You got date, time, integer, and string variables. So if you got a PowerShell with a custom object returning from the script, you might want to sit there and rewrite that script in order to make it work with the orchestrator run bus. So now what I could actually do over here, just as an example, let's just say I needed to access something from the PowerShell script that's being published. I can actually say subscribe, publish data, and now we access the PowerShell script, which is under the parse and publish XML data, and say I want the notes. So now the data that was in that PowerShell script is now accessible within Orchestrator. I can actually have another script use this. I'm using another activity in the meantime. But all you need to do to make the data publishable on the run bus and Orchestrator, is take the PowerShell variable, go to your published data, put that variable name in one spot, make sure you match with the right .NET type, and give it whatever name you want in the Orchestrator run bus. That's half the battle right there. Once you do that, so in the case of our script here, what's happening is we're monitoring the mailbox, we're grabbing the XML attachment, and we've got a solution in PowerShell that did it better in Orchestrator. We're taking an XML file, we're pulling the data out of that file, we're building Active Directory variables as well as all the data required for Service Manager before we go down the line. Now, if this was another scenario, I could actually have it where PowerShell would say importing a module. And again, when you're working with PowerShell modules within Orchestrator, you have to change your execution policy on the Orchestrator server. I believe bypass, but you're going to have to set it at a group policy level because you're running under a system account ideally. Now, flip over, click. Now, debugging in Orchestrator is really nice. To understate it, it's really nice. So in Orchestrator, you've got a built-in thing called the runbook tester. So you can actually take the runbooks and step through them and find out where they're failing, where they're not failing view variables. One big catch-22, your runbook tester. It is not a sandbox environment. Repeat after me. It is not a sandbox environment. It's stepping through the runbook, but it is still, if you're accessing your production Active Directory, your production SQL database, it's still accessing that production system. So that's one thing you got to look out for. But when Orchestrator crashes, when a runbook fails, its logging is really nicely detailed. So each runbook has its own individual event log. When a runbook fails, I can double-click on the error, and it'll immediately identify exactly where within the runbook the error happened. Now, you might get a slightly cryptic message, but you can find out at least what happened, where it happened, whether it happened to sit there and say, the runbook failed, why? Magic error. It'll give you a very specific error as to why it happened. Now, one of the things you do want to look into long-term, like if you're heavily developing runbooks, and you can budget for it there, plan for a proper tiered environment for developing your runbooks. Don't do all your development on your production server and cross your fingers on Active Directory. I know nobody here will do that, but just if you can plan for it, do it. Because with development server, then you're actually playing with runbooks. Well, put it this way, it's an automation system. What happens if you write a runbook that pulls in all the Active Directory users and inadvertently, because you made a mistake, deletes all the Active Directory users? Okay, not a good idea. If you can, look into a development server. It's still an orchestrator server, but it's an orchestrator server with, say, different configuration, pointing at a different environment, test folders, anything you can do to cover your rear end. But the logging, when runbooks fail, is really nicely detailed. So you can actually go in there and sit there and say, why did it fail? Well, I failed at this particular task, and the reason this particular task failed was this particular error message. And although they're .NET based, they're not horribly cryptic enough. Most IT pros, we can look at things and figure our way out there. This will give you the pointer. Now, we're good for in PowerShell, and I love PowerShell. But with an orchestrator, debugging PowerShell is a bit trickier. So if you use the runbook tester, the nice thing with the runbook tester is you can go in there, and it'll show you the various runbook variables in the system. So I'm trying to access an Active Directory user computer. I can see this user's mailbox name. It's working. I can see the values are coming down the line. PowerShell, guess what you can't do? There's no way of seeing those variables natively to Orchestrator. I'm asking a nice gentleman who seems to have something to do with PowerShell and Orchestrator to see if he can help fix it. I'm going to file it on Connect, actually. But out of the box, you can't. But actually, you sort of you can. That's a bit of a fib. So what we can do in PowerShell is we can go into PowerShell and use, say, add content. Like literally take the variable we want, have it write to a text file. Or better yet, what I like using is take the export CLI commandlet, pipe the variable you want, and write that out as a file through a CLI XML. What that'll give you the object. That's going to tell you if you had a null value, 5 spaces, or nothing at all. You can even, if you want, use within PowerShell the ability to write to the event logs directly. Now, that might even be a long-term solution, because if you might want to have debugging within your scripts consistently, you can use the PowerShell's ability to write directly to the event logs and leave that in as your way of tracking what went wrong, what went right. The bigger one to look out for is your scripts. Remember I was telling you that little window is not really an editor? So what you want to do, take your PowerShell ISC or your ISC of choice for editing scripts and building scripts. Build the logic flow there. So if I'm monitoring an email file and parsing XML data out of it, like I'm doing here, put that XML file in a file folder. Build a PowerShell script in the PowerShell ISC and learn how to do it there. Once you're convinced that it works, then put that into your orchestrator environment. So then you're down to, we know the logic works, but if I subscribe to the orchestrator variable and something blows up, literally, then you start pointing at variables immediately after where Orchestrator had its integration in the system. And whatever debugging features are available in Windows PowerShell, let's leverage them as well. Let's take a quick run over here. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to do a little debugging here. I'll be honest. I couldn't think of a good way to break a script because I usually have very good luck with scripts, so I flat out broke it. So over here, you can see we already have a log history of things I've done right and things I've done wrong. Here, let me bring this up because I don't think anybody can really see that. So in this particular runbook, these are all the bad things and all the good things I've been doing. And as you can see, I've been playing with my orchestrator server, and I've done a lot of bad things. I've also done a lot of good. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to run through our little environment and show you the solution we made for the client. So this is with their onboarding request. And we're going to have the orchestrator runbook try to work with this thing right now. So we're going to onboard a new user, ideally, or at least create the ticket for it. First name, John Smith. Apparently Mr. Smith is a very popular fellow. Location, he works in Madrid. Request, new. Submit. Now let's make sure everything works right. So this is actually dropping it directly into an Exchange mailbox. There we go. Let it run smoothly, run it slowly. There we go. It's already dropped the TechEd into there, mimicking what we just had with the old request, where the manager would send the request down to the email box. But now I'm going to fire up Orchestrator. I could schedule it, but we're just going to do a straight direct run. So I'm going to run the runbook. His job is going to monitor the mailbox and watch the log. So immediately when this runbook is working, it's actually telling me exactly what particular task it's working on as that's happening. So there's a live monitoring of the runbook. That part's kind of okay. That tells you things are working and at least doing something. But it's also going to tell you the log history. So as things go badly and fail, it'll make entries in here. Okay, it takes about 30 seconds, I said, right, for the mailbox monitor. Come on, little computer, behave. Let's see if we had any refresh here. Am I an impatient person? Yes, I am. Okay, it's read it because I can see it's marked as unread. Go to my friend runbook, and it looks like it's done something. Okay, so we can see from the logging here that I screwed up. We've got an entry here for 6:27, and that would be North American time, because my system is still set up for that, indicating something bad happened with the runbook. Now, I'm going to stop the runbook from running, and we're going to go in here and take a look. So it just didn't simply say that your runbook failed and life is bad. It said, monitor mailbox. This actually ran fine. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I got your data, generate random text. I had no problems. When I didn't get attachments, something bad happened. But instead of simply being something bad and we have to kind of scratch our heads on it, you double click on it. It's got a fairly detailed log exactly when and why it failed. Now, of course, in here it's a little .NET-ish. The network path was not found. Well, I know this is .NET, but the first line makes sense. Network path was not found. This happened when we were dealing with the get attachments activity. So let's take a look at our get attachments and see if I can spot why it happened. And I guess I had a little too much sangria last night because, well, I'm trying to write directly to the server's name. I know this is supposed to be a UNC path name because I had it in my documentation, so I'll just quickly correct that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Scorch mail. All right. And this is the other important part to look out for. Actually, it's a good thing, actually. If I don't check out this runbook, so let's just say I did make a change to it, and I haven't checked it out, it's just like checking out a document in SharePoint. So the document is still there. It's still read-only. You can't do it. You can look at it. You can play with it. But until you check it out, you haven't done anything bad. But I'm going to do something bad. I'm going to check it out. Well, it's actually not something bad, but I'm going to put my fate in the lives of the computer. So we're going to check out the runbook, make sure the change has gone through. It has gone through. To make sure the change goes back in the system, we check it back in. And now I've committed that this error that I fixed is going to be working. So let's try it one more time. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I wrote the system, and I know that all I have to do is simply mark that as an unread email. I could go through the same process and regenerate it, but I don't think we're going to wait 40 seconds for an email. So let's go down to run. Let's go down to our log. It'll take about 30 seconds as it twiddles its thumbs and thinks about what it's going to do. And let's see how much further it gets. So now remember I said that each runbook has its own separate log. So although you see monitor email, obtain XML data, these are actually 3 separate and unique runbooks. So if I go to obtain XML data and look at its log history, it's only what's unique to that runbook. So if that runbook's been running fine, I'm only going to see things about that runbook identify why it's worked or failed. Now let's just see if our good little friend's behaving. Log started. Log history. Refresh. Okay. So we've just rerun the same runbook, corrected the error, and now we've got green. Green is good. I like green. Now we want to check the next run down the line, obtain XML data, and see if it ran okay. And looks like it. 6:27 in some ridiculous time, it didn't run so good. So let's stop the runbooks right now. And then we can take a look at why this one would have failed. Log history, clickety-click. So in the parsed and published XML data, which is the PowerShell activity, it came up as a fail. I made a mistake. Sorry. And we're going to look at there and identify why it failed. But here's the problem. See, it's not going to tell me what particular point in the PowerShell script it failed. It's just going to give me whatever error is coughed up on the screen. It doesn't say why the error happened. It doesn't say where it happened. It just simply said a bad thing happened, game over. But remember, if we're going to put a script into the orchestrator environment, we're going to build the logic of that script so we know that the script works in the first place. So that the only thing that's changing that script are the variables being introduced by orchestrator. So I'm going to take a look, because I know my script was right, and see where I might have made a mistake, because I was in a bit of a rush last night. So I'm going to go into my parse and publish XML data. Okay, well, from initialized data. Well, let's see if we can add something in here. See if the orchestrator is actually giving us the content we want. So I'm going to do and take the file name. I'm going to pipe it to export CLI XML. And we'll put it on, that's my first available folder. I think it's called OIP. OIP, here. And I'm going to tell my thing to dump it down to bad thing.xml. And finish. Yes, check it out. Check it back in. Now, I know the reason that it didn't work is because I put the wrong variable in the system. But what this will do is it was to rerun this entire script yet again. This will take the value that's called file name right now. And even though I can't see it internally with the orchestrator, it's going to pull it out and create an XML file on my hard drive. So within PowerShell, if you need to look at that value, you can go back in there if the orchestrator has crashed out, or you just want to launch the shell environment, go in there and run and import CLI XML and the name of the file. And that'll show you the content. If it had no value, if it was a string value, if you had an array, if it produced something that PowerShell wasn't expecting at all. That's like the simplest method I've ever found. You just simply take the data, pipe it to CLI XML, and now you don't just simply have whether, see, doing add content will work. But the problem with add content is if it had a space, and you looked at the file, you wouldn't be able to see that the only output was just a space. If you pipe it to CLI XML, it's going to show you the object. The object had 1 byte. The byte contains a single space. It's going to show you what the data is, the length of the data. It'll give you everything you had as if you ran it within PowerShell directly. So what we're going to do is correct this, because I know if I do from initialized data, it should actually be the file name. Tell it OK. Finish. Yes, check out the runbook. And this is your file stuff again. If you check out the runbook, up here is your fallback. Oh my God, I did something horribly bad. If the boss finds out, that's the end of it. I don't get to go home. If you made a mistake and you don't want to put it back in, just simply undo checkout. It'll undo everything you just did. That's your closest you're going to get to a rollback right now. But of course, before we did this, we went in and we exported the runbook, right? Because the other thing is when you export the runbook, as it was an XML file, just like we did file save as with Microsoft Word and WordPerfect in applications years ago, you can give it as many file names and as many revisions as you want. So if you want to have 10 copies of your runbook, you can have 10 copies of your runbook. It's just an XML file. Just give it a slightly different name and variable for each one. That's your rollback, your built-in rollback process. Your other fail-safe, again, is to look out for checkout and check-in. Now, here's something I do need you to see, because that'll actually make your life easier. Murphy's Law. Nobody likes Murphy. He's the most unpopular character on the planet. So remember I was telling you, you couldn't do Control-Z here. And if you try it, it's not even worth your while. It just won't happen. But all of this in here, you can go over here, good old-fashioned Control-A, Control-C. Open up our friend Notepad. Now, it seems a little bit lame. But what you're going to notice up here, you see these little GUIDs coming in there? That's your orchestrator variables. The data contained within that box, although it looks like a GUID, it looks like something that we can't deal with, it looks code, is actually pure ASCII. So you can copy all that ASCII data out, put it in Notepad, do your work, something bad really happened, you can literally take that and paste it right back in. Because I've tried editing a few runbooks and PowerShell scripts in the orchestrator, and I don't know if it's my laptop or my keyboard, the fact that I move very fast and talk very fast, but I bumped the keyboard the wrong way and I lost 10 lines of code. Well, just simply copying into your Notepad, there's your fallback. It's a simple thing, but it's a nice thing. Let's get out of that. Now we're going to step over and take a look at what I call good practices. I won't say best practices, because best practices suggest that it's been ratified and officially recognized by an industry and a corporation. But from working with Orchestrator and PowerShell, I found a couple of things that are good things to know and good things to do. And they're as close to a best practice as I can come up with. So global variables. A global variable is accessible by all runbooks. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're exporting your runbooks, again, it's going to push out those global variables each and every time if you select that off. What that also means is if you go to re-import that runbook and you've got global variables with the same name, every single time you go to import your runbook, it's going to ask you, do you want to overwrite X? Do you want to overwrite Y? Do you want to overwrite Z? My personal opinion on global variables is use them only when you actually need them. A lot of people are using global variables because they don't realize you can create local variables. But guess who does that? Our good friend PowerShell, in the simplest way of all. So you remember how we took a PowerShell variable, we gave it a value, and you can publish that back in the runbook? You quite literally are running a PowerShell script, give it a few variables, and you just publish those variables on the runbook. So you can actually create local variables within your Orchestrator runbook. That gives you options that you could have two runbooks that actually have the same code, different configurations in the variables, and you can actually have the two in the same time. So if you couldn't have a development server, you could run a single server as long as you had two sets of runbooks side by side with the local variables pointing different content. Another one you're going to look out for is when you're running a dedicated server. So most situations with Orchestrator, you won't have a problem with this. But let's just say your Orchestrator is attached to something, say, let's just say a SAN device. And this one Orchestrator server is the only one that can monitor and work with the SAN. So normally in that situation, when you call up a runbook, it goes to the Orchestrator server system, finds the first available server, and just runs the runbook. So you want to run a dedicated server. The way to do it normally is you go directly into the runbook and you specify the name of the runbook server. Here's where things get bad. You don't want to do that. Because if you're running a production and development scenario, and the name of the runbook server happens to be dev, orchestrator, whatever, and you're running the production environment, is it working on the production server? No, it's working on the development server. You've told a specific name. So what you want to do in that scenario is define a variable name of the name of the server you're working on. And you can do that. You can actually tell the runbook that it's accessing a variable called runbook server, or my runbook server, whatever you want to call it. But you can change the content of that variable in each unique system. Other big one to look out for is when you're doing runbooks, especially when you get into a development and production environment, is that your names have to be the same. Sounds a little obvious, but it's something I stumbled across at a client site where they had one name for the Exchange environment, for one variable, and one name for the production environment. So every time you export the runbook and bring it back over, you have to go back and re-edit the entire script and edit all the content. So give your names the same names. Again, the content can be unique, but the names need to be the same. And the biggest one I keep going over and over and over in my head, because nobody wants to call up the backup department and say, could you please destroy my SQL database? Export the runbook before you edit it. Yes, you've got your checkout. Yes, you've got your undo. If you export it, that's your fail-safe right there. It takes 10 seconds. It's a file. And bad things happen, you won't care. Or you'll care even less. So take a little look over here at our practices. Am I wrong server, sorry? All right, so like I was mentioning over here, if we were to run a different runbook server, so let's just say this one here had to be run on a different server. When I have the invoke runbook activity, by default, the field down here where it says runbook servers is blank. And that's fine. That's normal. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be, because what it's going to do there is call up the orchestrator system and say, who's the first available runbook server to take this task on? Because remember how you've got a limit of 50 runbooks at a time? If for any reason you're hitting a runbook server and the first guy's not available, he takes the second guy. But if this particular task needs to run a dedicated runbook server, well, normally we might just do, say, connect me to the EOT DPM. And that would work. That would work absolutely fine. But if this is a runbook that's going between a production and development system, again, if you're doing heavily development of your runbooks, you want to have two systems because, again, you want to be working with an environment that's not mission critical. You want to put a variable in that. And it is supported. So instead of using EOT DPM, I've created a global variable, subscribe variable. That's TechEd, runbook server, or a specialized runbook server. So now, if I export this runbook with that configuration, and on my development environment I have a variable called runbook server, and on my production side I also have a variable called runbook server, I can just simply enter the content. So I'm not rewriting the script, I'm not re-editing the runbook, I'm simply bringing the data from one configuration to another configuration. Things just line up, things just work. Oops. Okay. Now for backing up runbooks, as I was saying, it's so simple, you'll be surprised that most people won't do it. Right-click, export. I showed you that before. Just simply give it a unique name each and every time. Now, why does it keep doing that? Too many keyboards. All right, disable AD users. Excuse me there. Now just so you can see a little look at what your exported runbook looks like. It may not make sense to any of us because it is XML, but it is nothing more than ASCII data. Number of runbooks, boo-boo, there we go. Yeah, it's a little gibberish, but that's pure ASCII. There's not one binary character anywhere in there. So if I had a PowerShell script in there, I haven't tried looking at this recently, I should be able to do, let's do format word wrap. Somewhere down here, should my friend PowerShell? No, different script. But the data is just text. You can copy that and throw it in a USB key. There's no fancy thing to that. Now, if you do need to encrypt it, then that's where you're creating a zip file encrypting the runbook because it is clear text. But with an orchestrator as well, what you can also do, you can create encrypted variables that are literally encrypted within the orchestrator database and cannot be accessed by anybody else. Now, over here. Now, one of the nice things about Orchestrator, as I was saying, is a very community-based system. Not only just, like I said, not only designed by Microsoft, but the community out there is constantly producing things that go and build upon your Orchestrator environment. It's the fact that there are PowerShell commandlets being developed by the community. One of the things that got me with Orchestrator the first time, as I said, oh boy, Orchestrator, it's a Microsoft system. It'll have PowerShell commandlets. And I looked for them. There's not a one anywhere. They don't exist. But the community came up and said, you know what? We need them. Well, Orchestrator has web services that expose its features. And a brilliant fellow has already written, there's actually a new one on there from this fellow from General Mills there. I believe it's on the scorchcoplex.com site there. But the original one I found is orchestrator.coplex.com. They work the same way. They consume the web service that's in Orchestrator and take that information and create PowerShell commandlets for you. So you may not know how to build PowerShell commandlets, but somebody's already gone out there and done that. So simple commandlets, I can access the runbooks within the Orchestrator server. I can look at the system. I can possibly stop a runbook. But the support for the community is like, I believe this one fellow, we had to call him up from work there, and even though he was working 24 hours a day and having a crazy job himself there, he was willing to step up and sit there and say, well, if you're trying to make this feature work in Orchestrator, here's how. The community store is incredibly powerful. The only thing that's more powerful than the community support for Orchestrator is the community support for PowerShell. So let's take a quick little look at our commandlets over here. Shrink you out of the way. And just bring myself over here. Okay, let's do it easier. I'm having a little bit of fun there because my speaker notes are not on the screen. But that's life. All right. All right, so don't miss any pieces here. All right. So over here, we're going to run the PowerShell console. It should be, excuse me, clear the screen. You can all see it okay, or change to the OIP, where I place the script, and it should be. It's the Orchestrator module. Nope, wrong folder. There we go, Scorch Web. All right, so this was a freely downloadable module designed by somebody on the internet, in the community, I believe on orchestratorcoplex.com. It comes with a bunch of predefined scripts, but really the heart of it is that first one up there, the module. The scripts are designed to show you how to work with the module, but the module itself is actually fairly simplistic. So I'm going to clear the screen here. So all we have to do is we're going to first off import a module called Orchestrator Service Module PSM1. Enter. Now, if I want to get the commandlets that are available in that module, standard PowerShell criteria. Get command module Orchestrator service module. There's all the commandlets he's written to access Orchestrator from the outside. So these aren't commandlets that are meant to run inside Orchestrator. This is actually having the ability of looking at the Orchestrator environment from a console and do some things with it you might not normally have to be able to do, or more correctly, that you can do that you would want to do. So the first thing we're going to do is actually connect up to our Orchestrator server. Now, the way the system works is it wants to know the URL of your Orchestrator server web service. Now, that's really nothing more than typing a web service name attached to the server name, but he's built a nice little command that literally just builds that for you. So URL equals get Orchestrator service URL. Whoops, back tab. And the name of my Orchestrator server, which is EOT SCORCH. Enter. And really, all it's doing is this. It's nothing more than building the value for me. But it's handier. It makes more sense. Now that this is done, I can go in there and access my Orchestrator server and do some simple things like let's get a list of the Orchestrator runbooks on the server. Get Orchestrator runbook. Oops, excuse me. From the service URL, which is the URL we just defined. And runbook path. I'm going to take the root. We're literally accessing the Orchestrator runbook structure as if we're accessing a directory structure. We just hit enter, and now we should actually see PowerShell returning an object with all the runbooks I have available. Come on, you gonna behave? Yep, the lights are still blinking, but nobody's home. There we go. Now, of course, that's returning a list of objects which may not make sense to most IT professionals because it's literally just a list of rubbish. But we can, because this is still PowerShell, we can pipe that through something more useful. So I'm going to sort this on the path object. Sort object path. Oops, excuse me. Path spelled without an S. And I'm just going to show you just the path. So although this is a big object, I can actually go down there and select only the information I want, and there I can list all my runbooks directly from the outside of Orchestrator. Now, if I want to get a little more information, we can do the same thing and show me the ID of the individual runbooks. I can store this away as a variable. I can access this. Now, the more interesting thing I can do is, well, that I could actually trigger one of the runbooks remotely. So normally you're going to be accessing the Orchestrator GUI, and you'll start the runbook because you have a schedule that's going to trigger those runbooks. But if for any reason I need to be able to run a runbook directly without launching the big GUI console, I can do that as well. So let's do a runbook. Take away all this. So give me a list of all your runbooks. And sort the object of the path. Sort object. OBJ. There we go. Is my typing bad? Yes, my typing's bad. Quote. Sort object. Path. Store that away. And now I'm going to have the thing start one of the runbooks in the system directly. So, same commandlet, but they've got one called start. Excuse me. Orchestrator runbook. And we're going to access the runbook. We're going to just take the first one on the list. And with the magic of TV. So we've now gone into System Starter Orchestrator. And what should be, if I put correctly there, I believe it'll be this one here. Yep. So we've already gone in from the outside and turned on that runbook from the outside using PowerShell. Something we couldn't do normally, and a feature we can actually have in our hands. Now, I'm not an expert in web services, but the fact that I can consume the information in Orchestrator, leverage it to PowerShell, and maybe tweak it to meet my own needs, that's actually quite nice. Now, the frightening thing is that was the older version. This is constantly being revised, again, by the community. And there's a newer version that does the same thing and actually does a little bit more. The fellow from General Mills that wrote the current one for monitoring Exchange Mailbox has rewritten a brand new version to do this very similar thing with web services. Now, Oh, we're a little short in time. Okay. It gives you time to get early for dinner. So one of the things, again, I've always liked about Orchestrator and PowerShell is the fact that it's... The reason PowerShell took off, I think, honestly, is that Microsoft saw the community doing things with it and let them have their way and come up with creative solutions and build upon it. The same thing's happening with Orchestrator. It's a great system. It's easy to work with. Like I said, if you've seen the runbooks there, that's something that if your manager had to look at it. If you had an onboarding process and you literally graphically drew out that process using activities, as in we monitor a mailbox. When the mailbox is done, we create a service ticket in our service desk. When that's done, we get authorization. You could draw that out in Orchestrator. You can actually have your manager look at that and say, well, here's our IT process. Does it match your business process? Yes. It's less confusing for them. It makes more sense. But the fact I can take PowerShell and plug that in there is to make it even nicer. For example, like I said, if you had the ability to monitor a system, work with a system, and PowerShell and Orchestrator didn't have it, you can plug that in there. Usually one of the things that kills people off with that is they sit there and say, well, I could make PowerShell work in there, but I don't know how to get the variables in and out. Well, as you see, you can simply subscribe to those variables within Orchestrator and put them directly in your PowerShell script and republish data back out there. You got a few catch-22s. You only work with string, integer, and date time, but you can take those PowerShell scripts and put them into Orchestrator. We've got the web service commandlets and Codeplex. Again, Codeplex constantly being developed and improved by the community. You can't much go wrong with either. Any way to get your home earlier. Actually, we've got a bit of time here if anybody's got any questions. I think there's supposed to be a nice lady out here with a good microphone. My ears are a little quiet, but is she hidden on us? Okay, go for it. Oh, sorry, can you repeat, sir? The way you extend, so the question was, can the 50 runbooks limit be extended? Yes and no. The way you extend it is by adding additional Orchestrator servers. Now, that also goes back down to, see, I did a badly designed runbook on the screen here where we had 3 little runbooks because it looked really pretty. That's not the best way of doing it. I did that simply for visuals. What you really want to have is one runbook that does it all, and you can also attach scheduling to that runbook, so you don't want to have the runbook running all the time, only when it's needed. The other thing you could do is, say if it had to be a manual process, you have to trigger that runbook, you can use the PowerShell commandlets and manually go in there and fire it up there, or use the Orchestrator console. But the way of extending the runbook limit is adding additional runbook servers and managing your resources at the same time there. Yeah. More questions? Yes? That's right. Thank you.
Sorry, what you just described there went against what I heard yesterday from some of the Orchestrator people, that you should be setting up your runbooks small, modular, so you can reuse them. You can increase from a 50 runbook limit on a server up to a potential 200. It's all dependent on the amount of workload you're putting on the server in question. It's not a case of scaling out using additional runbooks. You can scale it up on a runbook server, providing you're not overloading that physical server.
Yes, you're correct there. It's not just simply a hard-coded limit. It's as I say, a guideline. Because if you write a runbook that's heavy in processor usage, yeah, you could hurt the system. But you're right. Like if you have runbooks doing light tasks, you're absolutely correct there. You can actually use a little more than 50 is not the magic number. It's just a good guideline. But we don't abuse the guideline either.
I've got a second question. That's with regards to the email integration pack you had. Mm-hmm. I'm only just starting to mess around with Orchestrator in the last few weeks, and I've brought in the Exchange user management pack. Scotland name there. Integration pack. Is there any benefit in using the Codeplex supplied one as against the Exchange user one?
So is there any advantage? So the question is there any advantage of using the Codeplex version for a task versus the Microsoft one?
Yeah, specifically the Exchange user one, because I'm using the Exchange user one to read the mailbox, delete the mail, etc. But obviously what you've just shown me here today, there's an alternative. So I'm just wondering if one's better than the other, or is it a bit of swings and roundabouts?
My honest answer is that usually with the integration packs, sometimes I just simply start scanning through them, and the Microsoft one, if it's there and it meets my need, use that. But there are sometimes I've literally gone to many times and found that the Microsoft one meets the basic need. And the community guys have said, yeah, but really we need something simple as modern email box, delete content, or some features that actually are implemented better by the community. But the other catch one of the community, and we'll put this in hand right now, is that the community ones do not have any real support. So if you're running a mission-critical application, opt for the Microsoft ones first. You're going to get Tier 4 support from Microsoft to resolve the issues there. But the community ones aren't, they're not like something written by some little script kid. They're actually well-designed and well-published there. But yeah, the advantage I would say would simply be the magic word, support. Any more questions? Time? Breathing space? Or everyone wants to get to early dinner, don't they? Come on, be honest, I would too. All right. So if you're looking for more information and details on this, there's actually a couple of sessions that already happened. I'm going to point out the first two for Orchestrator. B201 and B204, if they've happened earlier on, so you can get the content online there. First one's a crash course in System Center Orchestrator. So any bits and pieces about Orchestrator that I skipped over, this will get you right into that. 204, all about Orchestrator and using the integration packs. It might get in development, I don't personally know. B340, you want to see this one. Done by Jeffrey Snover, the architect of PowerShell himself, Windows PowerShell Unplugged. So I don't know if it happened here at the European one, but the session has already been recorded in North America. And if you want to get your hands dirty and your feet going with Windows PowerShell, watch Jeffrey. He'll show you how the best way of using it there. Yes? Oh, sorry.
Jeffrey did that session here, and he's changed it up a little bit, so it's worth watching this one.
Okay, so I've just been told that Jeffrey did get the session here because I heard he left early. Excellent. And there's some more details in the European one. So I would almost say watch both and see the mix, because when Jeffrey talks about PowerShell, he makes it easy to understand for everybody. He designed it, and it's a great system, but it's also easy to listen to Jeffrey. You can take a look at this for your certifications. If you're looking for me, I'll be at the Scripting Guy Hall. Has anyone seen the Community Center yet? Hey, Scripting Guys, Ed Wilson? He's there all week long there. If you're looking for me, I should be hanging around there sometime tomorrow there. I've actually got to write my 247 exam. There's some resources from New Server 2012 R2. Yes, I'm dying to go back to Canada and download this and play with it right now. System Center 2012 R2. If you want, I'll flip back to the screen in a minute if anybody hasn't gotten the bits of the link. Our standard resources, channel 9. Oh, and if you happen to see a Tilly hat on me, I am not Rick Claus. But more importantly, evaluations. Whatever you didn't like about the session, I mean, I don't take it personally. Get the details in them. This is how they know how to make it better for you, how to improve it. Sean talked fast. Say it. Let me know. But the only way they can improve stuff for TechEd and make things better for you is literally give them feedback. Give them the details. Be critical. If you liked something I did, say it too, but give them the feedback there. And apparently, oops, I don't have it in this one. I'll leave back the resources deck for you. We got 7 minutes to go here. If anyone wants a last-minute Trivial Pursuit question, or are we going to sneak off for dinner early? Sounds like dinner early. I like that idea, too. All right, thanks, everyone, for your time here. PowerShell Orchestrator, get yourselves home earlier. Use the technology. You can ping me online 24 hours, 7 days a week. I am the Energized Tech.